my name is Chelsea. I've been working at the Museum of Boulder for about 2.5 years. I've always loved museums, and in college I started working at the special collections at my university library. That led me to get a master's degree in museum studies from Syracuse University, which eventually led me here to the Museum of Boulder. I've been in several different roles at the museum, but now I am the curator of collections, which means that I am in charge of taking care of all the artifacts in our collection, whether they're on display or stored here in our collections facility. We've been in this space since 2005. The storage facility is about 7,000 square feet and stores over 40,000 artifacts. These range in size, age, and type of object. Everything from board games to horse-drawn carriages to historic clothing to protest signs. Each object tells a piece of Boulder history. The collection got its start in the 1920s. When a man named A.A. Gov. Paddock, whose family owned the Daily Camera, started gathering photos taken from the newspaper and eventually objects from other local families. In 1944, Paddock officially founded the Boulder Historical Society. We've changed and grown a lot since then, but we continue to be dedicated to preserving the history of Boulder County and sharing its stories with people through historic artifacts. To make sure all our objects are safe, there are lots of different requirements for how to store them. Depending on what material the object is made of, it can need different temperatures, relative humidity levels, and type of storage. Generally, we keep the warehouse at about 66 degrees, cold enough to slow deterioration in most objects and keep relative humidity low, but still fairly comfortable for any people working in the space. The biggest thing is that you don't want big changes in temperature or relative humidity. Many materials will expand and contract, so we keep the temperature steady in here, no matter what it feels like outside. We have to take precautions to make the inside the least inviting for pests as possible. Keeping the temperature cooler helps with that. If I eat lunch in here, I wipe down the desk and throw everything away in an outside trash can instead of leaving it inside. Then we have sticky traps all over the warehouse. I check these monthly and keep track of any insects that are caught. Some insects don't harm the collection, but if they're getting in, it means others probably are too. If I notice an influx of harmful insects, or a specific area where bugs are coming in more than others, I have to take action to see what conditions are there that are allowing and encouraging bugs to get in. We tend to group objects together based on what they are and their size. This makes things easier to find if we know that all our mining materials in the same place or all our games and toys. It's also easier and safer for the objects to have like-sized boxes and objects together. Stacking boxes of the same size is sturdier and makes it easier to retrieve a box or artifact. Almost all of the objects in our collections are donations from people in the Boulder community. When an object first comes in, I evaluate it to see what condition it's in. If it's in bad condition, we might need to hire a conservator to repair it, or it might just need some extra care when being stored. Then the object needs to be added to our digital database. This process is called accessioning an object. This is how we keep track of all our artifacts. Each object is given an accession number, and we use a trinomial system, which just means that there are 3 parts to the number. So for this object, its number is 2021.002.001. The first number is a year that it was added to our collection. The next number means it was the second donation to come in that year, and because 2 objects were donated together, that final number means it's the first object recorded in that donation. So the other object that was donated has the number 2021.002.002, and the next new donation will start with 2021.003. We record the accession number in the records, along with notes about who donated it, a description of its appearance, damage it might have, and why it's historically significant. I'll also take a picture and add it to the record. Next, we have to label the object with the accession number so that in the future we can identify it. A common problem in museums is having an object without a label. It means we can't look up the record associated with the object, which means that we don't know any information about it, so it's virtually useless. Labeling depends on what material the object is made out of, but there are a few common components. One, it's reversible but still long-lasting. It should be difficult to separate the label from the object, but not impossible, so that the label can be undone if needed. 2, it shouldn't be very prominent. You want to be able to display the artifact without the label distracting people. 3, the label shouldn't harm the artifact. All the materials we use for labels are archivally safe, which means they don't have any acids that will cause deterioration in the object, and they won't permanently change the object. For this canvas, I've just used a pencil to very lightly write the number on the back. Finally, we have to give the object a home. Again, different types of objects require different types of storage. If it's very fragile, I might put it in a box of its own with supports like foam and tissue. Textiles are often either laid flat in a long box or rolled up on a tube, because you want to avoid folding them if possible. Oversized objects just sit on pallets like these to keep them off the floor in case water comes in. Most objects get wrapped in tissue paper and put in a box that's then stored on the shelf. This one I want to keep flat, because if I rolled it, after a while the paint could start to flake. But I don't want to leave it out on a shelf, because then it could get damaged more easily. So I've actually ordered a special box that's wide and flat to store it in. Once the object is in its place, I'll record that location in its digital file. Again, we have a system for naming locations. Every location on that side begins with A, and every location on that side begins with CS, which are the initials of the person who the building is named after. Then we use letters and numbers to describe which set of shelving, which shelf, and which box the object is in. Objects on this shelf have a location of A.A.shelf4.box28. That way, when I look up an object's record, I know how to find it. Another common problem for museums is that they may have a record for the object, but if the location is missing or outdated, the object is virtually useless since there's no good way to find it. Even though we can only display a small percentage of objects at any one time, it's important to keep all artifacts stored safely, since they're an important part of telling Boulder's history. If you'd like to help, there are several ways you can do so. Visit museumofboulder.org/collection to learn more about donating an artifact or contributing financially to help the collection. While there, you can also learn more about volunteering at the museum if you really want to get hands-on with history.